What's up, everybody? This is Noah from the All Things Today podcast. I want to thank you all for joining us again. I'm here followed by my amazing co-hosts, J-Bomb and Keith. Guys, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh, hi! I'm the Putty. I'm Keith. I don't know what else to say right now. They haven't said the past 3 times, so take it to J-Bomb.
I'm J-Bomb. Everybody calls me that, but I go by Jack as well. Just the head of the J-Bomb's recap for Mountain Artist Democracy. Let's do this.
Awesome, guys. And we also have another special guest this week. Last week we had Sean, a.k.a. Skinner from Mountain Artist Democracy, the vice president, on. This week we have another special guest. This is Corey. He's here this week to talk about a little bit of security and safety, personal safety with, we, as Mountain Artist Democracy, we have a lot of bands and artists that travel a lot. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about personal security and safety and other things of what he does. But Corey, go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, I'm Corey Bartram. I work in corrections. I've been doing it about 4.5 years. I'm currently a state certified defensive tactics instructor. And I guess that's it.
Well, there you go.
Nice.
Awesome. Now, you work in a juvenile detention center, correct?
Yes.
Is that the proper way of putting that?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And you were telling us that you personally, you guys don't carry any form of defense tools in a sense. You don't carry batons, any kind of,
Yeah, that's right. Like I clock in every day and I start my shift, and I've got essentially just a radio and a set of handcuffs. And I go out to a unit, and I'm tasked with that unit 12 to 16 hours a day.
Cool. Well, right on, man.
But I promise you, my hands are rated E for everyone.
Fantastic.
He's got these hands. That's all he needs.
I like how you put that, rated E for everyone. But anyways,
Yeah.
Corey, we want to thank you so much for being here with us this week. We've talked a lot beforehand. For those of you who don't know, Corey and I have been really good friends for about a decade now. It's cool to have him on this show. And I also want to thank you, our listeners, for tuning in. Without you guys, this podcast would not be possible. Remember to check out our Facebook and our Patreon account. Facebook at All Things Today -podcast and Patreon at patreon.com/All Things Today 304. Remember, Patreon, you do not have to donate to listen to this podcast. It just allows you guys to support your favorite content creators such as us. And I also want to thank our sponsor, Mountain Artist Democracy. Mountain Artist Democracy, as we've talked many times before, is that we are an entertainment club based out of southern West Virginia. We support musicians, artists, and podcasters, and filmmakers, so on and so forth. A lot of awesome stuff, guys, but definitely check it all out. And like I said before, this week we're going to talk a little bit about security and personal safety when it comes to being an artist and musician and so on and so forth that would keep you safe while you're out and about. And then we're going to go in later about, I think our second topic this week, we're going to talk about female artists in the industry, both in music and touring and everything, and kind of compare it to all the safety stuff that we go over. But Corey, yeah, we've talked about what you do, where you reside as your workplace. Run us through a typical day that you might see as far as security would go at a corrections facility.
This is the most cliche thing in the world you can say about corrections, but there really is no typical day.
Right.
Everything's just kind of a minute by minute situation. I mean, you could be sitting on a housing unit 1 minute and everything be completely calm, and the next minute, you've got an assault going, an assault on staff. You've got escape attempts are always possible. You've got inmates shitting in other inmates, like housing areas. You've got, all kinds of stuff. It's the ridiculousness just varies day by day.
Yeah.
But
one question I got to you. I know it's a juvenile correction facility, but what a lot of people don't take into account is that honestly, a juvenile correctional facility is about as bad as a normal correctional facility. These kids have grew up in some rough times, and it's just about as rough as being in a normal prison, right?
With the level of control we have, especially given like my facility. It can be, but like my facility typically doesn't have a lot of the issues that a lot of larger facilities do, or a lot of prisons and jails. I mean, we don't typically, we're not typically going through housing units doing searches, finding shanks or like homemade tattoo guns.
Okay.
But I mean, it's always a possibility we have found stuff. I mean, the very first cell search I ever did, brand new rookie on the job, like literally my first day on the housing unit, I did find a shank made out of a comb.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
See?
So as far
Yeah.
as our discussion as far as security and personal safety, what would what is your protocol in that situation where you do find that error? What do they go over with you to say, hey, if you find this or somebody comes at you with this, like what do you do to keep yourself safe?
I mean, as far as like dealing with the inmates and stuff, it's always kind of a keep your distance situation. Especially if it's clear there's hostile intent. Best thing you can do is a lot of times is like since you've usually been on that housing unit all day, is they're usually mad at you.
Right.
The best thing you can do is actually bring someone else in to try to de-escalate the situation. Aside from that, I mean, you can bring in 2-3 people, but you can't spend all day on one given little situation. And you can talk to somebody all the time in the world, but if somebody's got their mind made up to do something stupid, they're going to do something stupid.
Right.
So like I said, you can keep your distance. Really, the best thing you can kind of do to stop a lot of issues early on is really just make your presence known in the unit. It's like a lot of times I won't actually have to step in and deal with anything on the unit. I can be in a counselor's office, 20 feet away from all my inmates on that housing unit. But they know if things start getting out of control, if they know they start getting too loud, causing a disturbance, I'm just going to lock the whole unit down while I deal with the offenders, and that takes away from their personal time, what little bit they do have.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Keith, do you have anything?
How nervous do you get going into certain situations like that? I mean, I know you trained and everything, but do you ever get like nervous just to go in and you know that something might happen? Do you ever like just get nervous like that?
I wouldn't say nervous. And now especially as like a new officer, doing like coming out to a housing unit for the first time, or getting in your first use of force, it's always kind of a big deal, and you will have that anxiety. But after you've been doing it for so long, and it's just become a normal part of your day, like it has for me, it's not so much a nervousness or an anxiety, but I mean there is definitely like an adrenaline response involved. The only time I really have that nervousness or anxiety anymore is if we actually have to suit up for room entries or disturbance control or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
What's like one of the crazier things you've seen being a corrections officer?
That you can mention on.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, I mean, as far as that stuff goes, I can pretty much talk about any of it. I just can't name names and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think some of the craziest stuff I've seen, man. For the first 2 years I worked in this facility, we housed what are called status offenders, and it's juveniles that have been charged with a crime that an adult can't be charged with. Things like truancy, runaway, incorrigibility, stuff like that. And we had one female inmate that came to us time and time again, and it was nothing for us to have 3, 4, 5 uses of force against her, not per day but per shift. So I mean, like even midnight, even our midnight shift would come in at 8 p.m. and they'd be there till 6 a.m. at the time, and they would still have 3, 4, 5 uses of force with her. And actually, my first she was severely like mentally handicapped, but actually my first ever cell extraction was on her, I'd been on the job maybe like 3 months, and I was out on a smoke break, and my lieutenant came across the radio. He was still a corporal at the time, and he came across the radio, and asked for additional staff to come to our intake area where she was housed. And as soon as I came over there, my lieutenant throws a duffel bag at me and is like, "Here, put this stuff on." And we'd already restrained this girl a couple times throughout the day. And my lieutenant again throws this duffel bag at me. He's, "Here, throw this stuff on." And it's all riot gear. And I have no idea how any of it goes on. None of it's the correct size for me. My helmet's 3 sizes too big. My chest protector looks like a sports bra. So we stack up, and it's me, my lieutenant, my sergeant, another officer, and one of our counselors. And we go in on this girl because she slipped one of her handcuffs and has it wrapped around her hand like a set of brass knuckles.
Oh, man.
And has actually managed to use them to break a piece off the back of the door, and has a big piece of metal in her other hand.
Wow.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, no, thank you. And, a lot of what we had talked about before you were on the show with us, and so forth, was that, as far as our musicians and artists that we go and see locally, like part of the ones in Mountain Arts Democracy. I know, for example, like my uncle, who is 40 years old. He can handle himself for the most part, I believe. Love you, Skinner. But
I can't. What are you talking about?
For the most part, I think he can handle himself. But he's been in multiple bands, and they put on pretty good sized shows at different bars and at the bakery. They've done shows at. How would you handle a situation such as you don't have riot gear, you don't have the protocol like you would in a correctional facility or something like that? And let's say he's up there, he doesn't have security like these big bands. Like,
yeah, I was going to say, you look at even large bands, man,
yeah,
that have professional security hired in to handle the venue and stuff, come in hours beforehand, screening everybody at the entry points.
Yeah.
And you still have people, you can get on, I was just doing a quick, cursory Google search today just to see what all I had to work with as far as stuff like that goes. You can't, you can look on that, and even big artists, like some of the biggest artists in the world that have nothing to do with the kind of scenes we deal with. Justin Bieber.
Yeah.
I watched a documentary, and it was talking about his personal bodyguard.
Yeah.
His personal bodyguard, is constantly having to pull girls off of him from restricted backstage areas. Justin Bieber had an issue where a fan snuck onto his tour bus.
Wow.
And as local artists, you don't have the luxury of those big security firms.
You don't have the security, and most of the time, when you're moving stuff on stage, you're moving on by yourself. When you're transporting you and the band to, maybe let's say the bakery, that may be 35 minutes away from you. You're driving separately in your own personal vehicle at that time. If you do find one or two crazed people that are just intent on speaking to the band, that are intent on getting to them at some point, or somebody who's just disgruntled about something.
It doesn't even have to be a fan. It could be just a random passerby. Because violent. The FBI's Uniform Crime Report says that violent crime has been on a downturn for close to 3 decades now. But with the constant media coverage we have, you'd never know it.
Right. Exactly.
But in the world we live in, the threats everybody faces may not be the same, but they're always present.
Right.
The best thing is really situational awareness and mindset.
Yeah.
You've got to pay attention to where you're at. You can't have your face buried in your phone or just not paying attention to anything around you.
Right.
But, mindset is another big thing. Mindset can bring you out of a situation that you never thought not one day in the world you would ever be able to survive or even get through. And there's a lot of things you can do to foster mindset. A lot of people preach, martial arts and stuff like that. I'm big into firearms in my personal life. There's a lot of great 2-day classes you can take out there, even some 1-day classes. But the biggest thing, keeping you and your gear secure is definitely stay aware of your surroundings.
Yeah.
And especially out in open areas, don't dawdle, because
Right.
all that open space creates is opportunity. the longer the longer that opportunity's there, the more vulnerable you are.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I believe it was a show a couple months ago that one of Mad's sponsored artists had a guitar taken from him straight off stage.
Yeah, he had.
Yeah, and nobody had a clue,
Right.
And see, and something else like with your gear, like you've got to pay attention to that stuff, because I mean, for some people, this kind of stuff may be a hobby, but for other people, like it's how they feed their families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with that stuff, I mean, like, I can't imagine somebody taking the tools I need to, put food on the family for me, or like food on the table for me and my wife.
Yeah.
So, doing that to somebody, I mean, there's a lot of lowlifes out there in the world, but like you've got to constantly be like secure with your gear. If you don't have, somewhere to store it, even like say you've done played your set for the evening or whatever, and you're sitting there watching the rest of the bands, you've got to do something with your equipment, and something to present it as a hard target that's going to make the lesser elements of society look at it and say, that's a lot more trouble than it's worth.
Right, absolutely. So what would you suggest for like, we have got one person who we've mentioned quite a few times in the podcast. She's a member of Mountain Arts Democracy. She does, I don't know exactly what she does for her day job as a career J-Bomb. You might know. But Lulu Daniels, she's an artist. She is a fantastic artist. She used to be a tattoo artist.
Up.
She does wood burnings, so on and so forth. But she has a showing coming up soon of just her art in a building where she's going to be at. People are going to be observing it. And she's by herself. Now, of course, she's going to have some of our members there supporting her and everything. And, of course, we're a big family. We all look out for each other. But in that situation, it's her art out there showing everybody. It's her livelihood. And she's by herself in that situation. And, she's strong. She can take care of herself in a lot of situations. But do you believe that being by yourself, or do you believe that being by yourself or managing a group of people would be more difficult?
I'm getting a lot of feedback on you guys.
Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from.
I don't either. Y'all hear it though?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it's gone. Okay, it's gone.
Cool.
Sorry.
I don't know where it came from. Sorry, guys.
Was that you?
It was me. It was my AC. I apologize for that, guys.
I was going to ask, was you microwaving a burrito?
Yep. Oh, there it is.
He was getting his chicken strip popsicle, boys.
That's what I was about to say. He was making a chicken strip popsicle without.
That's right. He was warming up. He had the stick ready to go, the whole 9 yards, boys. But
got the oil going.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm vegetarian. What are you talking about?
We're gonna hear about it for the next 3 hours.
Man, we got all serious, and all of a sudden I goofed it up, man.
You done goofed. You done goofed.
I goofed real bad.
But no, back to what I was saying. Like she will be by herself in a sense, showcasing her art. Do you believe that it's harder to be aware of yourself and take care of yourself, or do you think it's harder to be aware of yourself and a group and watch it, even though strength in numbers and so on and so forth?
Anytime you're trying to manage any sort of population greater than one by yourself, you're already at a disadvantage.
Right.
I mean, with more people comes more problems and more opportunity for things to go wrong. I know it's cliche, like you just said, the whole strength in numbers thing.
Right.
But the more eyes and the more hands you have available to deal with a problem, that makes that problem that much less likely to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense for sure. Now, what would you suggest?
I'll give a shout out, with, as you guys know, I've talked about it a couple of times. A couple weeks ago into Carolina Rebellion, which is a big music festival. One thing I'll comment on the security there, they had their own event staff that was doing their thing, as far as crowd surfers, mosh pits, people trying to get on stage. But they also had like the local police, state police coinciding with them. And I mean, the event rolled off like it was not a problem at all. And that's one thing I will give, as far as personal security staff, I give them all the props in the world as far as making that kind of thing happen.
Right.
You know, they were on point, and they kept everything civil. They kept everything nice, and it was really cool. By the end of the show, we were walking past state troopers and saying, "Hey, you know, thank you guys for what you did today."
Yeah.
And that's the things I like to see when I go to a show.
Sounded like you said give them all the crops in the world. It's like,
Crop.
hello, officer, I'd like to give you this corn or something.
Yes,
I
you
don't
can
know.
have this corn and cabbage. Yes, but yeah, I give them all the
Here's
crops.
my
I give
newest head of lettuce.
And you know what? That head of lettuce can go with a chicken strip popsicle.
Dang
Amen
it.
to that. Hashtag it, bro. But no, like, you know, for example, if, you know, those groups didn't have that, what would you suggest for Lulu? Like, what would you, being by herself, showcasing her art, even though, you know, the family's there, Mountain Arts Democracy's there to support her and, you know, help her with whatever she needs, and, you know, we take care of our own, so on and so forth. But what would you suggest for somebody like that who's going in beforehand and prepping and, you know, may just be somebody who's upset for no reason, you know, go in and...
Again, I mean, situational awareness is always going to play a big factor in it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you can see something coming, you can head it off before it becomes a problem.
Okay.
But something else, again, comes back to making your presence known. If you're there by yourself, I mean, make sure the venue is as secure as you can personally get it. But stay mobile, make your presence known. Because, I mean, if somebody knows you're coming around every couple minutes, I mean, they may see that you're starting to develop a routine, but most people aren't going to put that kind of thought into it. If something like that were to happen, I mean, like, God forbid, like an art theft or something, somebody try and snatch something off the wall and run.
Right.
It's going to be a lot more trouble if they know you're coming by every so often to keep an eye on things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, make sure to mingle and everything, but make sure you keep an eye on stuff. That
Yeah,
situational
absolutely.
awareness, like you were talking about.
And just as a joke, but also for real, if you try to steal something from Lulu Daniels' art show, she will burn you.
She will. She does.
Yeah.
She does wood burnings for a job, but
She
she's
burns things for fun. So
she's
you know.
a bit of a pyro.
Yeah,
she
a little bit.
she'll burn you. So be careful with that. But yeah,
she,
I mean,
she
that's
lives
just,
to set shit on fire. You know.
for sure. And you know, I think this is all a good thing to take away from this. You know, if you are one of the Mountain Arts Democracy endorsed bands or artists or anything so on and so forth, like here soon, I don't know so much of what we've done, but I know in the future, in the prolonged future, All Things Today, our wonderful podcast here, has decided that, you know, at some point we'd like to do a live show. You know, actually up talking to people, emceeing, have everything sitting down, kind of like what you would go to for a Q&A at like Comic-Con or something like that. But kind of
like a
that.
panel cast.
Yeah, like a panel in a sense. We sit there, we answer questions live. We're actually doing a live show, and I think what you were talking about, that situational awareness, definitely is going to be our biggest advantage towards something or somebody who may be coming in. And even if it's somebody who's trying to be just obnoxious during the show, you know, you notice you're paying attention, you notice that somebody is getting ready to get on the stage and getting ready to do something stupid. You just have the ability to go in and stop that because of that situational awareness.
Yeah.
So, yeah, something else that will always help. You know, I mentioned it earlier. Keeping space between you and whatever's going on. You know, human reaction time is only so fast.
Right.
And typically, the more options we have to use to respond to whatever's going on, our reaction time gets slower and slower. But keeping that buffer zone, even if you suddenly become overloaded with what to do, you've still got, the more distance you have, the more time you have.
Right.
Sometime in, I want to say like the mid 1980s, the FBI did a study and found, I'm sure everybody's heard of the 21-foot rule.
Yeah.
The average adult male could, during the study, could close distance with a knife, a distance of 21 feet, faster than a trained cop or FBI special agent could even get their gun out of the holster.
Wow.
And I don't know if anybody here has ever been unfortunate enough to see up close and personal what, knife attacks or stabs look like.
Yeah.
But I've been stabbed twice.
Oh, wow.
it's
can't say I've been stabbed.
Yeah, not personally. Not.
it's the least fun thing I've ever done.
I was gonna say
Does
I try to keep my distance from stabbings
I
and
know. I heard,
sharp
buddy.
things.
I heard Keith try to say something there.
Does butter knives count?
I mean, one of my stab wounds was with a screwdriver. So
Well,
Oh wow. Okay.
I guess that's why we have a no stabby rule, right?
Yeah. No stabby.
Stabby.
No stabby, no cut, no thumpy.
but I mean, you can get online
Yeah.
and go to Google and look and see people like you can see pictures of corrections officers that have been cut open with handcuffs.
Oh,
That's
man.
something you would never think of as a weapon.
And I guess that's another thing you got to consider too is, expect the unexpected. That again cliche motto.
Yeah, threats can come from absolutely anywhere.
Yeah.
And they will always come from where you least expect them.
For sure.
Yeah.
And, I think it's a good transition into, our next topic. All this stuff about personal security and safety. We talked about Lulu a little bit.
Now, before we go on to this, I'm not the world's foremost expert in this stuff. I'm always trying to broaden my horizons with knowledge as far as this stuff goes.
As we all are.
Because it's something that pertains to my personal interests and the things I do in my day-to-day life. But I like I said earlier, my name's Corey Bartram. If anybody has any questions, they're more than welcome to seek me out on Facebook. You can find me under that name. I'm not a hard man to find. If you've got questions, feel free to ask me. I'll give you as best and as timely a response as I can.
And I think a lot of this especially will go out to our endorsed artists through Mountain Arts Democracy, or anybody who's listening to this who may be putting themselves in a situation where, you could be the main focus in something, or even just in general. If you're out in recently you went to a large concert with Hailstorm in This Moment, so on and so, and all of them, you're in a large crowd. Again, you got to watch yourself. You got to watch what you're doing. If anybody at that point has any questions about personal safety or security when you're in a group, when you're at an event, when you're performing a show, when you're doing an art showing or anything like that, definitely hit him up. Corey's got a lot of good information on that stuff, and like he said, he's always broadening his horizons. He's taught me a lot of stuff tonight. I'm pretty sure Keith, J-Bomb,
Yeah, I mean, Corey, I'll probably hit you up, privately. These guys know what's about to happen in June. We have a event called Metal in the Mountains.
Yeah.
It's going to be headlined by Mudvayne.
Oh, wow.
It's up in Pipestone.
No, not Mudvayne. Mushroomhead. Sorry, Mushroomhead.
Oh,
Mushroomhead.
wow.
Yeah.
You got me excited.
Yeah, it's Mushroomhead. Sorry, not Mudvayne. Mushroomhead. Hey, I'm still excited. It's Mushroomhead. But I'm going to be involved. I'm going to be involved at this show, and I'm going to be at a booth for Mountain Arts Democracy. So, I mean, this kind of information is things that kind of pertain to me as opposed to what's about to come up.
Yeah. For sure.
I'll say definitely get a hold of me, man. I'll give you all the information I can, and
I definitely will.
Yeah, for sure. Again, if you guys want to find him anywhere and talk about this stuff, it's Corey Bartram on Facebook. You can hit him up, or if you can't find him, let me know. I've known Corey for quite a time now.
Just drop my Facebook link in the in the thing with the podcast.
We'll do. I'll drop everything here so you guys can find him. But our next topic coincides with a lot of stuff, and I mentioned it earlier. Females in the art industry, focus more on the rock and metal industry. It's something all of us here are into the rock and metal, and I think we've made that clear throughout the past 3 episodes, and even more so now. But Corey, you went to the Hailstorm and In This Moment concert, like I was saying earlier, and even the 2 smaller bands were fronted by female artists.
Stitched Up Heart and New Year's Day, they were the opening acts.
Yeah,
and they're both female fronted, and they put on awesome shows.
Yeah, absolutely. And you of course being in your profession and what you learn, what you find most helpful to you. You're probably paying attention to that situation, of course. You're probably using your own tactics in your mind, thinking the whole time, like, all right, what's going on around me? What's going on here? What's going on there? That's something I'm sure you carried with you while you were there. And, you see these bigger artists with everything there. It's a cool thing. to look into, and it's probably, you see it differently than probably what we do.
Now, I'll say this, J-Bomb mentioned, the big event security. I don't know who the security company was that this tour or even the venue had hired for this. They were super professional throughout the whole event. They were super polite. They interacted with the crowd. I was 3 people from the barricade. One of them, I had a lengthy conversation with. But to my knowledge, there were no issues except from one idiot trying to smoke weed indoors.
Yeah.
And that was put a stop to fairly quickly.
Yeah.
But, I'm glad those guys did as well as they did. They kept things under control, and it let a really good show happen.
Awesome.
Well, actually, this kind of brings into both subjects. We've already talked about me going to Carolina Rebellion. There's a band called Butcher Babies. I'm sure most of you guys have heard of them.
Yeah.
They had a goal at Carolina Rebellion that they made very very clear on Twitter. They wanted to break a Guinness Book World Records record for most crowd surfers during a song.
Okay.
And that record was 262
Holy
crowd
crap.
surfers. Yeah. And according to them, as far as I know, they say it's official, but the count still hasn't been calculated. But we hit 264, and the song wasn't even over yet.
Wow.
This shows how it goes with security. Just because of them putting on Twitter that they was going to attempt this record, the security group at Carolina Rebellion almost tripled their efforts. I saw many shows during that time at Rebellion, and I saw triple the security guys up front, ready for those crowd surfers, ready for anything to pop off, and they were there ready to rock. And these guys kept everything civil. So when the band went on stage and said, "Hey, we're going to try to break this record," I saw these security guys. They pepped up. They was ready to rock, and they caught almost 300 crowd surfers in 4 minutes.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And was able to keep security enough to keep people from trying to rush the stage or trying to rush the band. They kept up a good enough security to keep everything in control.
Now, do you Keith J-Bomb, before I ask Corey so much, what do you guys think as far as, before Corey gives his opinion on it, do you guys think that a female-fronted band has a harder time with security and safety than, per se, like a male-dominated band such as Slipknot or Stone Sour or Avenged Sevenfold, as we were talking about? Do you believe that possibly these female-fronted bands have a harder time with security and safety?
Keith, you go first.
It depends on how big the band is, how to me, I think it would also depend on maybe how cute the front girl is. I don't know. That sounds really bad, but at the same time, that's kind of a thing people look into as well.
And that's why I'm asking, is because I feel like, unfortunately, I look at it, and I think most of us here look at it as from a musical standpoint, like how good they are as a musician.
Yeah.
But I do know that there are those very close-minded people that see it as, oh, that's a very good-looking woman up there, and I'm going to do anything I can to meet her because I can. It's this it's this cocky attitude, and I don't. And sometimes I wholeheartedly believe that women can be smarter than men. So that's why I think that the personal safety of front women could possibly be more dangerous than the security and safety of a male-dominated band. But
I'll weigh in on that as to say, like you said, I look at it as a music standpoint,
right?
But a lot of people don't. A lot of these guys going to these concerts just want to see, good-looking, pretty women, and you get a band like that come up there. I'd say it does increase security a little bit.
Now that they've weighed in, what do you think, Corey? Being more on the knowing more about the security and safety side and seeing it on a day-to-day basis, what do you think?
Anytime it's gonna sound really bad, but like anytime females enter the equation, things get really, really messed up.
Right.
I mean, it's barely been a decade. I mean, and all male bands have their security issues on their own.
Right.
I mean, it's barely been 10 years since Dimebag Darrell was killed on stage with Damaged Plan.
Yeah, I mean, you look at situations such as Dimebag Darrell, you look at Biggie, you look at Tupac, you look at...
well, I mean, I'm talking Dimebag Darrell was shot in the middle of a show.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like all of y'all mentioned, there's a lot of people out there who are going to be like, all right, this is a pretty woman up on the stage. Like, I'm going to make myself known to this. And I mean, we just talked about the In This Moment and Hailstorm concert. I mean, you look at Maria Brink, and I want to say the woman's name from New Year's Day was Ash Costello. But you look at them; they're both very pretty women.
Yeah,
and they're up on
I was
stage.
going to say, I just got introduced. I just introduced myself to New Year's Day here recently, and that lead girl is like super cute. I feel like it's like super cute. And
I mean, I'll weigh in and say, as far as the two lead singers for Butcher Babies, Maria Brink from, In This Moment, Lizzie Hale.
mm-hmm.
There was also, I saw a band at Rebellion I never heard of called Palisades. That was very, very good. I saw New Year's Day. All very attractive women, but in the same sense, great music. I was paying attention more to the music than I was to them. But there were so many people there that was not in the same wavelength as I was.
Right.
But we've all seen it, man. I mean, men, there's not a whole lot of categories that men fall into when it comes to women. Right. Either we can act like normal human beings or we can't. And especially you take, a pretty young woman like, Ash Costello or Maria Brink that's up on stage showing a lot of skin, dressed like very suggestively.
And being very metal. Very metal.
But, I mean, and you take those guys that can't handle themselves around women,
right,
and put them in that situation. I mean, it all comes down to basically whether or not millions of years of evolution have stuck with this guy or not.
Right.
I mean,
oh god, I need the boobies.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean,
it goes into the whether or not chivalry is dead.
Yeah,
right?
he's stuck as a caveman in a sense.
We all personally know guys who have no impulse control.
Right. Well, you take, for example, people, you're my size, Corey. I'm 6'3", you're 6'6". We're between 300, 350 pounds, so on and so forth. We're big guys. And luckily, we have the common sense enough to know, you know what, she's a musician. We appreciate her music. We appreciate what she's doing here. But you take somebody our size who does not have that impulse control and decides to storm the stage to do something, to go up there and make himself known, air quotes, to such, someone such as Maria Brink or someone. And, I mean, of course, it's not very often you see a woman who is 6'3", 6'6", or, anything of the sort there. So that's where a lot of my mindset comes in there, like as far as a male-dominated, a male-fronted band, and then a female-fronted band. Men, and I don't want this to get into a huge debate over, men versus women in any way, shape, or form, but I just want to keep it in security standpoint. Like, there are a lot of big guys such as ourselves. There are not a lot of big women our size.
Well, especially in the metal and rock communities.
Right.
A lot of bands and a lot of the crowd tends to be, like, big dudes.
Right.
And I mean, like, I'm sure we've all been to concerts where we've like, I'm a big dude. I've fought a lot of my life. I'm ex-military. I'm working in corrections.
Yeah.
I'm a defensive tactics instructor. There's still dudes I see out of the corner of my eye, and I'm like, I hope that dude doesn't do some dumb shit.
Yeah. Like, you just, and it's there are a lot of big guys, and if you see,
but like he's saying, there's not a lot of women that are going to be.
You are speaking out of my territory. I'm 5'5" and 108 pounds. I'm a little itty bitty dude.
But like, you don't go to many shows and see some chick who's 6'6" and 300 pounds.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if she's out there, more power to her. Like, I married an Amazon woman. My wife's 6'2".
Yeah.
So, but like you don't go to shows and see that kind of girl.
Right.
It's always they're always 5'2", 5'3", 106 pounds soaking wet.
And we all know as fans of rock music and metal music that we've seen, it's not, at least around here from what we've seen, it is a fact that you look around and you see that a lot of the guys in the crowd are 6 foot and plus, and most of the women in the crowd on average are probably about 5'7" and lower on average.
Yeah.
And so if you go to a concert such as Hellstormer in this moment, and you do get one of these big dudes, they're the majority of the crowd storming the stage, and you get 3 or 4 of those guys, they've got to worry about their personal safety up there, especially someone, Maria Brink. She's like, what, maybe 125 pounds soaking wet? Yeah,
she's not very big. And I mean, she's a pretty girl. She's an amazing musician.
Right.
But like I've been following In This Moment since high school. So I've been listening to them for close on to a decade, 2007, 2008, and like I followed her whole career. Right. And I mean, like she did a Playboy spread.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, so there's dudes out there who will see that.
Yeah,
and that's another thing I'm really glad about. Like,
and they recognize that.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing I'm happy about with the metal and rock communities specifically, is we kind of tend to self-police issues.
Right.
Like how often do you see in a mosh pit somebody gets a little too out of hand and somebody wraps him up, or the crowd violently corrects him.
And it's kind of like what we were talking about. I don't remember what week what episode we were talking about exactly, but rock and metal music tend to tell a story in a sense, and I think a lot of these. A lot of the listeners of this music, such as ourselves, we definitely take that to heart. We listen to their stories, we listen to their music, and understand what they're talking about. And I think we have a lot deeper understanding of music than possibly somebody who may listen to the new pop music. And I'm not bashing it in any way, but I do believe that rock and metal music tells more of a story than modern just pop and rap and stuff like that. Nothing against it at all. But, I think we have a deeper understanding of that, which means, in my thought anyways, their audience has a deeper understanding of people in a sense.
We've got a little bit closer bond as an audience.
Exactly. And we're not, and on top of that, the rock and metal industry is not as big as it used to be. Unfortunately, like I said, the pop music and the rap music is taking over, and such as their artists are bigger. So as a smaller community, we tend to take care of each other. And like you were saying, Corey, in a mosh pit or something like that, somebody's getting a little bit rowdy. Somebody's getting out of hand. It's not unlikely to see 2 or 3 other people say, "Hey, man, you're getting a little rough. We're just trying to have fun."
I'll tell you, like, to the extent this goes to, like, even the bands will correct people in the crowd sometimes. I've
seen that. Yeah.
I want to say it was 2006 or 2007. Me, Noah, and Keith all know about it. J-Bomb, I mentioned it to you earlier when we were talking about X-Fest. I went to X-Fest one year, and the headliner was Stained.
Yeah.
And Aaron Lewis actually stopped the show in the middle of a song because there were women crowd surfing, and guys were trying to pull their clothes off and groping them and stuff. And Aaron Lewis stopped the song and said, "If this shit doesn't quit, we will stop this show and make sure this concert never happens here again."
Yeah.
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 And actually, this past Monday, there was a show up in Roanoke. It was Shine Down and Five Finger Death Punch. And my sister was actually at this show, and apparently some people got out of line during Shinedown, and Shinedown, made a point to stop their song and say, "Hey, is everything okay over here?" And they pretty much made it clear that if things didn't get under control, they were just going to completely stop, and it actually got things in line. Like when I went to Rebellion, Stone Sour was the one. Corey Taylor got up there, and he made it very clear that the crew was not there to hurt you. They're not your enemies. Don't kick them. Don't punch them. They're your friends. And I love it when a band gets involved like that and says, "Hey guys, y'all need to get it together."
And you know, that's something I've noticed again about mainstream music, should I say, such as pop and rap, and that's what I'll call it from here on out. It's just mainstream music. But you know, in mainstream music, a lot of you see the videos online of like, if people are starting to get out of hand, those artists, they dip, man. They're gone. You know, they're worried about themselves more than their audience, which I think is that's a big kick in the pants to these people. You know, knowing that this is somebody, most likely these people in the audience look up to as, you know, possibly a hero to them. But then that person turns and runs off the stage and decides to stop the show immediately, doesn't go back on stage because people are getting a little out of hand.
Well,
like,
in their defense, like I kind of understand that too, because you know they're wrapped up in their own thing or whatever. They don't want someone to, or they don't want a crowd that they think is going to get too restless to, attack them or something. I know what you're saying. I'm just saying on looking at their perspective, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah,
I'd be
absolutely.
out too.
Well, and that comes down to the mindset of the individual.
Yeah.
Because I mean, like, you know, I can't say, you know, much about more modern or even mainstream music because I'm just not a big fan of it. I don't listen to it. I'm not exposed to it. But I can tell you, I've seen video of Phil Anselmo out of Pantera climbing down off the stage to fight people at the barricade.
Yeah.
I've seen Axl Rose with Guns N' Roses climb down off the stage to beat the hell out of a security guard who was dumping people on their heads as they were crowd surfing over the barricade.
Yeah, like there's just a different world behind it, and you know it does go again behind the audience because unfortunately I think a lot of rock and a lot of metal, we aren't the majority anymore. You know, rock and metal, it's kind of turned into a minority in a sense. You know, people look at the people who do listen to the mainstream music and enjoy it tend to look at people who enjoy rock and metal as kind of outcast in a sense, and we all got to kind of stick together. And I understand, Keith. Like for example, Justin Bieber back when he was huge, he had everybody after him. He would completely fill up arenas, and then if it got a little out of hand, he would dip. And I understand, getting yourself in the bag, getting yourself contained, getting yourself safe, being aware of your surroundings, making sure everything's okay.
Yeah, because there's only so much any given security crew can do with an arena of 200,000 people.
Yeah, but at that point, I think there is a way that they can, you do have to get people to realize, hey, you were at a show, you're here to enjoy this. And if they can calm them down, I don't think it's a big deal for this artist to go back out and go on. But I do know there's quite a few mainstream artists that just are like, no, they're getting a little more out of hand than I want it to be. That's the end of the show. And then what you spent, and my problem with that is the fact, like my sister, for example, was a big fan of Justin Bieber back in the day, and the tickets she bought were like $200 for nosebleed seats. And I'm sorry, but if you're spending $200 on seats up in the nosebleeds for somebody who's dipping out halfway through the show just because the crowd's getting a little bit rowdy, I mean that's bad. That is not a.
Well, you're also looking at a band that, yeah, they're pretty big too. Like they got a huge following, can fill up arenas and stuff too. Compared to someone that's like the it thing in the pop thing, that's probably worth millions and millions of dollars at the time, that can try to calm him down, but the way his fans are probably just like so crazy and out of hand anyways. Yeah. Good luck with that working.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I've seen.
I mean, that's the difference I've seen.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I say that's the difference in just the scene, man. Like, I mean, there's always the outliers in any community, and that's just a fact of life. But you look at, since we've been talking about the rock and metal community all night, man, we tend to be a little more close knit. We tend to self-police.
Yeah.
We tend to handle our own. But you see a lot of these bigger venues for bigger pop artists, and I mean things start to get out of hand there. You're literally better you're literally just better off calling in the local SWAT team to just try and disperse the crowd.
Right. And that's one thing, as much as I don't, we talked about this before, and I know I'm going to get so much hate for this, but as much as I don't like Metallica, you look at how they are. They sold out a show of over 1 million people, and this was a live show out. I don't even know where it was, but you've seen the pictures of. They sold out over 1 million.
Are you talking about the Big Four tour?
I believe.
Yeah,
so.
I was there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so
it was Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax.
Yeah, so like those four sold out over 1 million tickets during a show, and they are the big ones. You compare them to people like Justin Bieber and Beyonce and all these and Drake and stuff like that. You throw them up in there, they're right on par with them by any means. But you look at how they go about their audience members. I don't know. To me, it just seems like they care a lot more about their people, their audience, and doing the music rather than the fame and the fortune, in my opinion.
Well, I mean,
And so if people get
I'll
a little
go with-
too rowdy, they'll make it known, be like, hey, y'all need to stop. Y'all need to you remember why you're here.
Well, I mean,
get together and make it.
And look at it this way, man. That Big Four tour, that
Yeah.
show was the first time that Metallica and Dave Mustaine from Megadeth have shared a stage in over 30 years.
Yeah, true.
Like, that was a big catharsis.
Right.
And like, if those guys can overcome their problems and this long line of bad blood between them,
Right.
like whatever little stuff we've got going down in the pit, like it can get worked out.
Right. Exactly. What were you saying, J.
Well, it's
Bone?
like, I mean, I'll go with, you're talking about these artists that once things start to get too real, they leave the stage, they're done.
Yeah.
I'm picturing the fact that, when I seen Corey Taylor from Stone Sour get up there and say, hey, these security guys are not your enemies, they're your friends. Don't be kicking them, don't be punching them, they're here to help you. I think that came off better to the crowd, and they became more cooperative than if Corey Taylor's just to say, you know what, screw it, we're done, we're leaving.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like a band that you paid money for, halfway through their set, leaving the stage would cause a whole lot more of a problem than that front man getting up there and just saying it how it is.
Yeah, and I think we also have a lot more to worry about with media too. Like you look at how media portrays this. Such they take a beloved idol. I don't even know a lot of mainstream music now, but you take, let's say Cardi B, or let's go with Drake because he's the top rap something whatever right now. Let's take him for example. If he decides to leave halfway through a show because he doesn't feel like he's safe, they go in and say, crowd started a riot. Drake feared, for his safety and left the show. If a metal show got out of hand like that and a metal artist decided to leave halfway through, it'd be a whole different story. It would be, oh, Metallica decided to leave halfway through a show. Why? It's like.
Well, you mark my words on this. You want to talk about more modern artists in the way the media portrays them.
Yeah.
I mean, all the way through the '90s, and like J-Bomb. I mean, you're the oldest out of us, so I mean, you grew up seeing this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Through the '90s and the early 2000s. I mean, no matter what you saw in the media about metal, it was always something. Metal band Satan, something metal band Satan. I mean, you look at the Columbine shooting. How quick were they to try and pin that on Slayer, Doom, and Marilyn Manson?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very true.
And I mean, it also goes, Justin Bieber walks off stage, nobody bats an eyelash. But back in the 90s in Canada, there was Metallica and Guns N' Roses that was touring in Canada. There was a pyro accident. James Hetfield got burnt. Metallica had to end their set. And, Guns N' Roses could have came in and saved the day, kept the crowd happy, but they decided that, we're done too. And that caused one of the biggest riots in Canada that has been known in history.
And didn't that kill multiple people? Because
people flipped out. They were burning things. They were flipping cars.
Yeah.
They were going nuts because, the band couldn't go on.
And, we can kind of circle this back around to our conversation about female artists in a sense. We look at the evolution of rock. I believe it all started with Amy Lee and Evanescence. You look at the start of how that rock, and we can trace it back, of course, like Pat Benatar and Joan Jett and stuff like that. But you look at the.
But
start
I mean, if you're going to give Amy Lee that credit, you also have to give some credit to the band Kitty. That's about the
Kitty,
same
and
same
OTEP.
time period.
OTEP.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But you look at them, and you look at the evolution of that, and then you think about everything we've just talked about. You know, it's not hard for a musically inclined female to make it in mainstream music. Look at Taylor
Yeah.
Swift and look at Miley Cyrus. They both started out in the country end, but then switched to pop because that's what made them famous. It is not hard
Yeah.
for a musically inclined female to climb their way up if they've made it, if they kind of made it in the beginning. I'm not saying that all musically inclined females are going to be famous, but it's not as hard for them by any standpoint. But then you take a musically inclined artist that goes into a mainly male dominated music industry and then try and do that as well, and then tack it on to all the other safety and security stuff that we've talked about with bands such as Metallica and Megadeth and Slayer and Guns N' Roses and all these other bands. That's got to be difficult, especially where you see that's a male-dominated musical genre. And
Yeah.
then you got the ones who can't control, their impulses. You got the ones that, can't control what they do. It's got to be difficult. And, kudos to all of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I had the honor of seeing a lot of female bands, Rebellion, in this moment, Hellstorm, Butcher Babies, Palisades, New Year's Day, a whole lot of great female acts, and it wasn't the fact that they were female acts; it's just that they was great music.
Right.
But
for sure.
a lot of fans don't see it that way.
Right. Keith, do you have anything regarding it?
Not right now, man. I think I'm good.
Cool. Well, I mean, it's. I think we've had a good, successful conversation here.
Yeah.
Talking about safety and security and everything like that, guys. Really, to wrap everything up here, be careful when you go to shows. Be careful when you hold, art showings or anything of the sort. Even if you're going to a show or a concert as an audience member, be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of everything going on. That self-awareness that Corey was talking about multiple times, that I took away probably the most from it, just watching what's going on around you. Be safe. We mentioned Metal in the Mountains. There's a lot of good shows coming up. There will be a lot of shows coming up, all year. I just saw today that Breaking Benjamin and Five Finger Death Punch are going to be in Cincinnati in August.
Oh,
Well, say Trivium. Trivium's going to be in Charleston in July.
Yeah, Trivium's going to be at the bakery in July.
the
guys.
bakery.
And
Yeah,
and that's
Trivium at the bakery is going to be epic.
and you got to remember, guys, Trivium's been around for a while,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
there's
yeah.
going to be a lot of people that are going to be there, and just
People are going to be packed in there like sardines in a
yeah,
can.
and the bakery is not. Excuse me. The bakery is not the most, it's not a civic center. It's not, one of these big arenas that's got all this security and, multiple metal detectors and stuff like that. I mean, this is a place. It used to be an old bakery. They're rebuilding it back to a big stadium.
Is that why it's called the bakery? Oh,
I'm gonna say yes. But,
Just a guess. Yeah.
yeah, pretty much. But that's that's one of the
figured it
things
out.
is it is definitely a smaller venue that you've got to be careful at. You got to watch your stuff. You got to be careful where everything is. And for all of those out there that are female artists, we want to thank you for you stepping up and going for your medium, whether it be music, art, podcasting, filmmaking, so on and so forth. That's awesome. Just again, be safe out there. We watch a lot of this stuff. Corey deals with this stuff every day, and as a correctional officer, making sure that you are safe, making sure that the security is up to par. Because if there is one little hole in the security and safety, it could be detrimental to the whole thing.
It just takes one domino to set it off.
Yeah, it really does.
But I'll
And
say it's
Noah, I do got to point out we still got to name that artist of the week.
Yeah, for sure. And guys, I don't know if you guys heard of them or not. I don't know. They have a show coming up soon. Our artist of the week is Disarm the Fallen. They are a Mountain Arts Democracy endorsed band. They got a lot of stuff going on. Great stuff. Definitely check them out, guys. I don't know exactly where all you can find them, but they're Disarm the Fallen. They perform at the bakery a lot. I know their drummer. I've talked to him quite a few times, and he personally works
Christopher Pierce, yeah.
Yeah, he personally works on the bakery himself all the time, and you know they know a lot about it as a band. If you see them, definitely check them out. Listen to their music. We share them all the time. Corey, did you have any last words?
Yeah, I was gonna say if I can get a final word in.
Yeah.
You know, this is going to anybody who's listening. It's not just aimed at male, female. I don't care if if you've never been a fight in your life or you fought every day of your life.
Right.
Whether you're an average Joe or you're a career military guy with 20 deployments under your belt.
Right.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So my advice to everybody, I mean, all politics aside, go get training. Whether that be, there's a lot of big names out there in the industry for it. I mean, you can go to guys like Travis Haley, who's former Marine recon sniper, former Green Beret. He was a contractor for Blackwater. So you can go to, Chris Costa. He did a lot with drug interdiction with the Coast Guard. His company's Costa Ludus. But I mean, if you're not sure what you don't know, or you're not sure what you want to know, we've got an awesome little place that opened up local here to us. For those of us in the Cabell County area, we've got a place in Ona now called the Edwards Training Center.
Okay.
And they're out. I think they're out Howell's Mill, but I'm actually getting ready to go take some classes with them. But I mean, just looking at their class list, and it's a lot of one-day classes. They're affordable, and I mean, whether you want to get into guns or not, I mean, from what I understand, they've got some good like hand-to-hand stuff, which everybody should know because you never know when you're going to be up close and personal with somebody you don't want to.
Exactly.
So, I mean, definitely look out for yourselves. Get yourself in a manner where you can foster a combative mindset should you need it, and just be safe.
Yeah, for sure, guys. And we talk about music and art a lot on this show, and that's because a lot of us here are musicians and artists, and we do a lot of stuff in the entertainment industry, and we wanted to do this. First of all, this is Police and Law Enforcement Week, so we wanted to let everybody know, that there are ways to stay safe out there. If you need help in any way, shape, or form while you're at a show or something of the sort, you can always count on those who their careers are protecting people. And we want to, Corey, we want to thank you a lot for coming on and explaining everything. Letting the people know who do listen to this podcast how to stay safe, how to take care of their, be secure while they're out on the show, and not have to worry so much about stuff going on. Definitely appreciate all that. J-Bomb, Keith, you guys have any final words?
Thank you.
Yeah, the only thing I got is to kind of go back to our Artist of the Week. Guys, Disarmed and Fallen, they are about to take a little bit of a break, just try to work on things. But just to let you guys know, I had the pleasure of getting to see these guys about a month ago. If you get a chance to check out Disarmed and Fallen, it's not just great music. These guys are entertaining all around. They'll play great music, but they'll keep you laughing in between it all. Yeah,
absolutely.
They're entertaining. They're entertaining as can be. So if you get a chance to check them out, I suggest you do so.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, or whenever you're listening to this. Again, we're recording on Thursday night, May 17th. This will go up tomorrow on the 18th. But Keith, where can they find you at, buddy?
You can find me on Instagram at It's the Putty, on YouTube at KGX3 Productions, on Facebook KGX3 Productions, or search up Keith Martin. That's me name. You can also find a funny video called Raccoon Eating Grapes with his little hands on YouTube, which I have for my friends right now. So you're welcome for that. Awesome.
J-Bomb, where can they find you at, man?
I'm sorry, but that damn raccoon has been taunting me this whole time. Anyway, my name's Jack Hagerman. Everybody calls me J-Bomb. You can find me on Facebook at Jack Hagerman.
Awesome. Corey, what about you, man?
I say Corey Bartram. You can find me on Facebook under that name. You can find me on Instagram under Atlas with a Gun.
Yep. If you guys have any questions for him, definitely let him know. Again, I'm your host, Noah Martin. You can find me on Facebook at Noah Martin. I'm on Instagram under multiple aliases, so don't even try that nonsense. But mostly where you're going to find me is with the podcast on Facebook at All Things Today -podcast. You can find this on if you want to email us at Yahoo, it's allthingstoday@yahoo.com. And also, we do have our Patreon account set up, guys, for donations. A way of supporting us, it's patreon.com/allthings304. We definitely appreciate everything you guys have done for us. Listening in, Mountain Osh Democracy, thank you so much for the sponsors. Remember, Disarm the Fallen coming up, guys. And more importantly, between Police and Law Enforcement Week, stay safe out there this weekend, guys, when all these shows are going on and in the future. That's why we want to do this for you. But that being said, guys, thank you all so much for joining us today. You all stay metal. Peace.
You better stay safe or we come find you and
Peace out.
kick your ass.
Later, guys.